Okay, so this is the story about how I lived with a meth addict for like 4 months. Basically, so I was in college for my H&C, sorry. So while I was in college, I was living in an under 18 block, um, an old boys block, mind you. And I thought, oh shit, because I was living next to, at the time, a guy who kept having girls round after like midnight, even though you're not supposed to, and they were basically going at it every night, and they were also like rattling my doors. So I was like, okay, I need to go down to the services and be like, look, is there any where else you can move me because this is getting stupid? And they're like, yeah, we can move you downstairs. I'm like, perfect. So they moved me downstairs, and then they were like, okay, hopefully everything's good for you here. Alas, it was not because um I forgot to keep my door locked one day and got my door kicked in, and it kept going on. Like they kept like kicking my door, they kept like writing things on my door, being like faggot and whatever. I was like, damn. So at the time I was on Grinder, even though I wasn't supposed to be because I was on 17. And let this be a story of how you shouldn't be on Grinder when you're like younger than 18. So um, I was talking to this guy who made me really curious because they were um like into pup play, which at the time I was like, interesting. So I actually lived like next the village next to it, and obviously I can't say where the village was because obviously I can't let too many details out of this story. So basically, I go to speak to him, and really nice. So I get off the bus to go meet him, and he's in his pup play outfit, and obviously I'm taken aback because it's in public. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm like kind of semi-famous around here for doing so." I was like, "Work, honestly, as long as you're not flashing or whatever, you're fine." He goes into the shop. The shopkeeper's laughing, but buys alcohol and then go back to his place. And the first thing I noticed about this place is that it's very sort of tidy. Like, nothing's in the way. The only thing that's on his coffee table is a weed sort of box. And you know how some people who smoke weed have weed boxes. And you know me, I don't really care about whether you smoke weed or not. Maybe partake of it a bit myself. Haven't done it in 1.5 years though, which we'll get to. And yeah, I was just like, okay, perfect. And I'm speaking to him, and he's fine. And he's like, yeah, I'm into this. And I'm like, oh, I'm interested. Tell me about it. And he tells me about pup play, about how, like, the community and stuff. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Got along well with him. So I was like, okay. And I went to see him again, like, a week later. And then he mentions that he's trying to grow weed. And I was like, okay, interesting. And he shows me his failed setup, and he's like, yeah, I don't think I can anymore because it's like it's not working. I was like, you know what, fair enough. And then he goes, oh, like, how was college? And I was like, oh, well, it's pretty shit because like I live in a communal block and everyone's pretty much a dick and stuff. And he goes, oh yeah, and let's be. And then he mentioned, oh, I'm actually looking for someone who wants to basically lodge out my house. So like I've got a spare room, like the weed room you've just been in. Obviously I can dismantle it and stuff and then move it, and you can live in there if you want for like the rest of the college days. And I was like, now at the time I was really fucking desperate for some reason. Um in hindsight, should have never fucking took that deal, as you'll know in the story, but whatever. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. I need to speak to college services first because I'm under a contract. So the next day, I go back. I'm like, "Hello," and they're like, "All right, hen." And I goes, "Look, I'm having trouble with the college block and it's really fucking annoying me. I can't do this anymore. Can I please move out? And they're like, because you're under special circumstances, then yes. I'm like, perfect. So I get a taxi to move my stuff out, which was wild for a start because none of us had a car. So I move my stuff out and I move in, and he goes, okay, nice. And I talk to him for the night, and then at the night he goes, there's some things I should tell you. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So the first thing he mentions is his meth addiction. And I'm like, what the fuck? So basically he said, oh yeah, like, I was homeless for my youth, like from 16 to 20, I was homeless, and I picked up a meth habit from there, and I was like, do you know what? As long as you don't smoke it around me, as long as you keep it outside, that's fine. Like, I'll try and help you out, because obviously meth is a fucking shit thing. And he goes, yeah, it doesn't help when I'm schizophrenic. I was like, oh, God. So, basically, I was like, look, I don't think you should smoke meth, obviously, especially if you're schizophrenic. I'm going to try to get you some help. And he goes on to a rant about how the police hate him because obviously, fucking, if he's causing problems, of course the police are gonna hate him. Then he also mentions how he has a stalker, and I was like, oh my god, what the fuck? So basically, he had a boyfriend, and him and his boyfriend had, in the pup community, what we call a handler. Now, some pup play. Fucking handler is someone who basically looks after the pup. So you can be a pup and be a handler. You can't be a pup and be a handler. Basically, the handler's job is to look after the pup. It can be different things. It can be like in a traditional sense, where it's like sort of pretend like you're a dog and the owner kind of thing, or it can be like an emotional thing. At the time, they were like him and his boyfriend and the person was going well, and then handler was jealous that the two of them were basically having more fun without him and stuff, and basically it got really toxic. And then the boyfriend took the handler's side, and then that November last year of that, mind you, this was like November 2022, my flatmate kicked the boyfriend and the handler out, and that was it. But then he decided one day to go visit the handler because I don't know why. Fucking gets worse in a minute. So he kicks out the handler, but then goes to his handler's house, and he gets spiked with GHB, which, if you don't know what GHB is basically a date rape drug, which was famous in the news a couple of years ago because people kept spiking drinks with it. Now, I can't really attest to the validity of the story because he said that he was out of it for a week. Now, usually GHB doesn't really last that long. Even if you do dose him up multiple times, I don't think you can actually do that without, killing them. But I believed him. I said, okay, that's really fucking intense, but I'll try to help you out in that regard as well. And he goes, thank you. So a couple of days go by, and then he starts alluding to the fact that he really likes, like, I don't know how to describe it. He was like, how do I describe it? Like he was hinting, suggesting, like he wasn't saying outright. I think he was trying to be sneaky about it, like kind of insinuating. But I basically got him to admit that he was a zoophile, which at that point I should have fucking left. But I thought, I've already ended the contract. I've already paid him the first month. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'll just deal with it. So I told them, okay, do not wash that shit. Obviously, it's illegal. I do not want to talk about it with you. I don't want to just deal with that with you. Just let's pretend this conversation never fucking happened. The next day, guess who's knocking at the door? It is the stalker. The stalker had a habit of sending parcels to the house and then using that as an excuse to go see him. So I'm getting fucking pissed off because I want to leave and go home to my family that week, and I couldn't because I stepped outside and he goes, "Oi mate," I'm like, "Oh fuck, it's you." So I go back into the house, tell my flatmate he's there, so I go round the back and hopefully try to avoid him. Alas, I did not. So I go to I tried to go past him and he goes, "Where's my parcels, mate?" I was like, "Look, mate, like you ordered them to the house, and like he's told you before, do not come to his house, just get fucked." And he goes, "Oh, you'll believe everything over me, like I never got my side of the story." It's like, I barely fucking know you, I don't even know you at all. I was like, and that was it. Like, I just left. And this happens over a few times. Like, he's knocking at the door, like he won't leave us alone. I will say like multiple times in the story, I'm sorry. And I just this goes on like the whole time in there. Mind you, I'm here from January to April. So one night he tells me about DMT, which DMT is a drug that is like it's kind of like LSD but really fucking intense. He described it as like potential ego death, where like if you take this, you will see God and like all that shit. And I was like, "Are you religious?" And he goes, "No, I just seen God." And I was like, "Okay, something's not adding up here, but go off." Trey's making DMT, and he's got like this big demijohn. He's got the like the root that comes from it. He's cooking it, and his demijohn broke. Like the whole fucking bottom shattered. And I just watched it just pour, and I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's so sad. So another time, the person comes to the door, the stalker, and I thought, oh fuck this. So I forced my flatmate to phone the police, which is what I should have done ages ago. The police come and they're like, "Yeah, we know about this, but there's nothing we can do about it because there's no witness. But now, like, you're here, you can like attest." And I was like, "Great." Give them a statement, and they were like, "Great. We'll go see him and we're going to tell him to fuck off, basically." And I'm like, fair enough. The police will come in multiple times as well. So this goes on for a couple of days, uneventful days. And then he basically went on a rant one night saying that he thinks that child porn should be allowed because that it could get pedophiles from doing it like to actual people. But I told him like like pedophiles are going to do it no matter what, no matter if you give them CP. And he would allude to the fact that he thinks that it's wrong to be a paedophile, but is like a therapy thing. And I was like, "Do you know what? I don't care anymore. You have bigger fish to fry." One night, he decided after a while, "Do you know what? I'm going to invite him, the stalker, to the house." Now, I didn't know about this, so one time I came home from college, I walk in and guess who I see sitting right across from me? And at that point, I was like, what the fuck? So I grab a pan from the kitchen and I get ready to start hitting him with it. But then my flatmate stops me, being like, what the fuck? Like, it's okay, it's okay. Basically, he tells me, like, he wants to basically hash it out. And I'm like, are you fucking stupid? Like, you have an active police case against him and you want to hash it out. Anyways, I was like, look, it's your house, can't force you to do anything. I'm going to I'm going to sit there and I'm going to watch him all night. I don't care how long you guys stay up, I'm going to make sure he doesn't do anything to you. So I basically sit there shooting daggers at him because at that point, that's all I could fucking do. And they're talking and basically acting like they're friends. And I was like, what the fuck's happening? Basically, he goes away. And I'm like, you are an idiot. And I basically go off on him. But that was pretty much the last time I saw the stalker. Now, my flatmate did this thing where he kept disappearing for fucking days. So he would like, oh, I'm going to go see someone. And I was like, work. Gig lifestyle, go, get your hookups, whatever. So he goes away and then I'm like, it'll be like 12, like at midnight. And I'm like, are you alright? And he goes, radio silent. So I'm like, okay, maybe he's just sleeping. A couple of days later, I'm like, okay, this isn't normal. I'm falling, and I phoned him, and he basically went missing. So I was like, oh well, fuck. Phoned the police, being like, hey, like my flatmate's missing. Haven't heard from him for basically days. Give him the details, and they're like, right, yeah, I'll file missing police report, and he would come back, but then nothing happened. He did this again and again, and eventually, just like I got used to it. And one time, I was away back at home, and I got a call from the police at the town I was living in, and they were like, "Have you heard from your flatmate?" And I'm like, "No," and they were like, "We got like a distress call from him, and basically we broke into the house and we haven't seen either of you," and they're like, "Okay." Like, what the fuck? I'm like, well, why did you break into his house? Anyways, so I was like, okay, it's fine. I'll try to speak to him to go see if he's okay. But obviously, there's only so much I can do. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. So I come back and, I saw the door. It's fucking broke open. And I saw my flatmate and he was like, yeah, like, I just went away for a bit and, like, I got really upset because it was on meth. And I was like, of course you fucking were. So, obviously with gay lifestyle, like, he had hookups, but then he told me about these two couples that he really liked. Like, one couple, two people that he really liked. And he was like, yeah, like, they're so nice, they treat me like a pup. And I'm like, good for you, maybe those will keep you from doing nefarious shit. So he goes over, and then he comes back, and he tells me all about it, and then he goes, oh yeah, they like had CP on the wall projected, and then they had the zoo file up on the roof, and I was like, I didn't need to know that. Why are you doing this to me? And I was like, fuck it. I'm getting out of here as soon as possible. Like, I'm finishing college in 2 months. I can do this. Until one night was basically the last. Well, not really. I'll get that and you'll see in a minute. One night, he gives me a drink. I'm like, thanks. It's tea. Tastes kind of funny, but I thought it's just the water because the council I was living in had shit water anyway. And then I got really woozy. I'm like, oh, I must be really tired. I'll go to bed. Turns out I've been spiked. But I didn't know this until later. So I go to bed. I'm like, look, I need to go to bed. I need to lie down. I'm like, okay. And then he comes in later and he's like, you alright? I'm like, uh, and he starts pulling down my pants, tries sucking me off. I'm like, no, stop, I don't like that. And he's like, oh, okay. Goes away. I fall asleep. Woke up. My asshole was sore. You can guess what happened. So I was like, oh shit. So I thought maybe it's just because like I tried gaslighting myself into thinking that I wasn't, you know, wasn't R-worded, but you know, um, I just didn't do anything about it. Just pretend it never happened. So one time I walked into my college, and at the time I was seeing the mental health support person there, and she was like, "Are you okay? Like, I haven't seen you in a while." I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine, just having a rough time." And then she goes, "Come into my office." And then I was like, "Oh shit." She's coming to my office, and then she's like, "So how come I haven't seen you in a while?" And I'm like, "Oh well, like I moved out and I'm dealing with my flatmate." And then she goes, "Are you smoking weed?" And I was like, "No, it's my flatmate. He smokes weed and he smokes meth." And then she goes, "What?" And at that point, I was like, "Oh fuck it." So I broke down to her. I was like, "Look, I'm having this really rough situation. Like I'm living with him. He's not like he's still this, that, and this, that." Reported the stories to her, and then she was like, "Okay, this is a huge safeguarding issue. As you're under 18, we have to take responsibility for you." So basically, they got me out. They said, "We'll try to find a accommodation." They did. And I was like, "Work." So I told my flatmate, I was like, "Look, I have to leave because it's a huge safeguarding issue, and basically I can't do this anymore." He's like, "Oh, I should have known." Like, like it was just this huge thing. Like he make a huge deal about it, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Moved my stuff out, and I moved into my new flat block. Now I shouldn't have done this, but I kept visiting him, just to check up on him, and then he ended up getting a new flatmate who had a dog, and he told me about his fantasies, and I was like, "Dude, what the fuck?" And I couldn't do anything about it because his flatmate was gone, and I couldn't just text him or anything like that. And then I was like, "Oh well, shit." My last straw was when he um basically decided to have a go at me because he thought I was with, and I was like, "Do you know what? Fuck this." I called him out. I said, "Look, you're this, that." Mentioned all the stories, and I'm like, "This, do you realize how this makes you look? And you raped me." And he goes, "Oh, I should have known, like, all this and that." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck off. Just piss off." And that should have been the end of it. Didn't see him at all. But then I got a letter from the judicial service telling me I was still supposed to be a witness in the case. And I was like, "Oh, shit." So I go to the court, and guess who I see? And he tries talking to me, but I am not having none of it. So I just ghost him, go into the witness room, and then later found out they dropped the case. And I was like, "Well, fuck. You got me fucking dragged down 80 miles from home so I can sit in the waiting room for 4 hours only for you to tell me, 'Oh, we don't need you anymore.'" But yeah, that's basically the story about how I left with a meth addict.